Bishop House. Is that proper language to use for a young woman?
Well, you know, in Hosea chapter 4, God called Gomer a whore.
No.
And I don't know what's going on. I'm confused.
I know,
I'm confused
honey.
too.
I know, and that's why I'm trying to understand this, because at the end of the day, you have a right to understand. Mr. Woods is still taking an active part in Addison's life. How does that make you feel, knowing what you believe you know?
I am happy that she has a father figure, and he is a great dad.
Ms. Baylor had a brief sexual relationship with Mr. Childs, at least so she put it, and the result of the encounter was her daughter. At first, Mr. Childs accepted paternity and was open to being the father of her child. But that ship sailed when Mr. Childs' wife convinced him otherwise and said the baby could not be his.
Miss Allen, you say that after a brief affair with Mr. Childs, you discovered you were pregnant with your daughter, Ms. Baylor. You say Mr. Childs acknowledged paternity until his wife convinced him otherwise. You intend to prove that Mr. Childs is, in fact, your daughter's father. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Baylor was pretty direct. I'd give her that. She was asked why Mr. Childs was denying her and her baby, and her reply was sharp. She claimed he was denying her child because of his petty wife, and she had her hands wrapped all around his decisions. But Mr. Baylor came to the rescue in defending his wife.
His petty wife. She been
Excuse me,
doing that for years. She wasn't there when we were sleeping together or nothing. So I don't think she have anything to do with it.
So you're basically blaming his wife?
Yes.
She should blame herself, Your Honor.
What?
Why did it take you 20 years to figure out that you should get a DNA test?
Because I didn't need to go through the drama.
They both had different memories of how their sexual relationship started. Ms. Baylor remembered that she came over after a football game to spend some time with Mr. Childs, and that's when one thing led to another, and they ended up getting intimate. But Mr. Childs painted a whole different picture for the judge.
Then one day, I just came through after a football game, and he wanted to ride with me. And so we went on and had drinks or whatever, and then that's when we had sex.
Is this the night you believe you conceived after the football game and the drinks?
Yes.
Now Ms. Baylor found out she was pregnant. From her recollection, she claimed that when she found out about the baby, she told Mr. Childs that there was a possibility he could be the father of her baby.
I told him, I said, she may be your child.
You told him directly?
Yes. I told him, I said it's a possibility that she may not be yours.
So you said it is a possibility that she may not be yours?
Exactly.
So you acknowledge this doubt?
Yeah.
As I said, they both had different stories as to how they remembered the whole situation. Mr. Childs claimed when he found out she was pregnant, he reached out to her and asked her to get a DNA test done if she believed the child was his. After that, she disappeared and didn't even tell him when she gave birth.
I'll tell you what, if you're pregnant and it's mine, let's get a DNA test. We can go ahead and get this out of the way. Have no problem with taking care of her because she would have been my first. I don't see her again for months. Probably longer than that, Your Honor.
So, Ms. Allen, when Ms. Baylor was born, you didn't invite him to the birth?
No.
Did you invite any other man?
No.
There was a reason she had been quiet all this while. She was a loose cannon, believe me. Mr. Childs' wife was tired of listening to Ms. Baylor speak, so she decided to drop some truth bombs of her own in the courtroom, and they were not funny at all.
She remember me chasing her up and down the street, but she can't remember who fathered her child. Why am I living in her head rent-free, but she can't remember who fathered her child? Furthermore, Your Honor, he's always been there for my children. So this little song and dance she doing, I'm telling the truth. Why would she? Okay, I think it's important to know too. When we met her daughter, the daughter told us that she had tested someone else.
The truth was starting to pop out, and all hands were pointing at Ms. Baylor to fill in the loopholes. Apparently, a man her daughter didn't know reached out to her and said he had a feeling she might be his daughter, and so wanted to get a DNA test just to confirm.
Ms. Allen, you say this person was never a consideration.
No, and I told him that, but he was insisting on it. I was like, that is not, I wasn't even messing with you back then.
So the bottom line is, Ms.
She don't know, that's the bottom line.
Allen, you have not had a DNA test with any of the other true potential fathers.
Ms. Baylor's daughter was one hell of a smart young lady. She wasn't going to wait around for her mother to tell her who her biological father was. It's not like she knew anyway. She reached out to Mr. Childs and spoke to him about her being his daughter. And the sweet thing was that he actually didn't deny her.
Would come to me like, you're my cousin, TJ's your dad. I'm like, I don't know who TJ is. Who is TJ? And I went about it myself. I found him on Facebook, hit him up, and I said, look, I don't know what's going on, but I do actually want to know.
And did I ever once deny you?
Nah, you never did.
Never once.
Mr. Childs was not a bad man after all. She actually made several efforts to meet Ms. Baylor's daughter when she was much younger. Well, guess what? He actually did meet her. But the problem was Ms. Baylor. She just wasn't being very truthful with her daughter.
I got in touch with Ms. Baylor, and I told her that I wanted to meet Shy.
11 years ago, you would have been 9, Miss Baylor.
Yes, ma'am.
So you made an attempt to meet Miss Baylor at 9 years old.
Yes, ma'am.
But you weren't informed of any of this till you were 14.
No, ma'am. I met her. I sat down and talked to her at Miss Allen's house.
Well, it's time we brought the cartoons down on this plot twist. Wouldn't you say? It was time to find out the truth and know if the craziness was all worth it. The moment of truth is here, people. Brace yourselves for the results.
Mr. Childs, you are not the father. I'm very sorry, Miss Baylor.
It's okay, Your Honor. You know, at the same time.
It's okay, honey.
To the both of you for that, and we can move on.
That's fine.
For Ms. Lohman, a lot was on the line. She was hoping and praying that the results from the DNA test would reveal that her supposed husband-to-be was the father of her child. Mr. Mitchell, on the other hand, said that nothing would make him happier than finding out that he is actually the biological father of Ms. Lohman's daughter.
Ms. Lohman, you are in court today hoping and praying your fiance, Mr. Mitchell, is the biological father of your daughter, London. And you and your mother are here to prove it. You say today's DNA results will determine the future of your family together. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
There was no denying it. Trust me, everyone could see it. The doubts about the paternity of the baby were causing so much damage to their relationship. I mean, they are supposed to get married next month, but with the way things are looking, that might not be possible.
London is not to become of Mr. Mitchell, then our wedding is going to be off, and that's going to, it's really going to upset me.
All right, and how is it affecting your relationship now?
Me and Mr. Mitchell, we fight all the time about, me telling Mr. Mitchell that London is his, and he will tell me, no, I don't think she is.
Here is where things start to get interesting. Ms. Lohman claims she was trying to help Mr. Mitchell get out of a horrible living condition, so she asked him to move into her house, and that's when their sexual relationship began. The crazy thing was, when they started being intimate, Ms. Lohman already had a boyfriend.
So he ended up coming to live with us, and I was really happy when he got away from that.
And so your relationship started while he was living with you and your family?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you single at that time?
No, Your Honor, I had a boyfriend at the time.
Ms. Lohman wasn't lying when she said he had a rough childhood. While he was growing up, he was abused as a child. He single-handedly raised his 3 sisters without having help from anyone. And so when Ms. Lohman showed him care and love, there was no turning it down.
And she said you had a very tough childhood. Is that true, honey?
Yes, ma'am. I was abused. I had to do everything for my family. I raised my 3 sisters and my brother basically by myself. It was hard.
I understand. So when you moved in with Miss Lohman, it was like finding a family, a real family.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, when Ms. Lohman found out she was pregnant, she automatically believed she was his child. I mean, he didn't know she was intimate with Mr. Mitchell, even to this day. She then drops another truth bomb when she says at the time she believed her ex-boyfriend was actually the father of her children.
So when you found out you were pregnant, your ex believed it was his?
Yes, Your Honor, because at the time I also thought it was his.
Why did you think it was his if you knew you were also having sex with Mr. Mitchell?
At the time I was with him, so I wanted to make myself believe that it was my ex.
Why did she then start to believe Mr. Mitchell was the father of her baby and no longer her ex-boyfriend? Well, in her defense, she claims she remembered she had more sexual encounters with Mr. Mitchell than the ex-boyfriend. Well, that's not how it works, Ms. Lohman.
And I asked, do you have an estimate of when I conceived? Because I can't tell you the exact date. And she told me I conceived somewhere between October 12th and October 22nd. And I got to looking back at the dates, and I had sex with Mr. Mitchell more times than I had sex with my ex. I had sex with Mr. Mitchell about every day and only once or twice with my ex.
Even with the doubts in his mind, he didn't back down from being a good father. He was with Ms. Lohman every single step of the way. The only problem was the doubts that just kept ringing in his head. He didn't want to father another man's child.
Yes,
And you're there when the baby's born?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you sign the birth certificate?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor. At the time, I was confused as to who the father was, so I didn't want to put anybody on the birth certificate except myself.
Okay, well, that's responsible. So you don't put anyone on the birth certificate, but you're still there for the baby, Mr. Mitchell.
Well, the suspense is finally over, and the hassle of who the dad of their child is about to be revealed. Will Mr. Mitchell end up being the father, or are they going to kiss their marriage goodbye in a few months?
Mr. Mitchell, you are not the father. Ms. Lohman, I can tell that was not the news you were expecting to hear. Are we certain? Is your ex London's biological father, or is there another possibility that we just have not spoken about yet?
No, Your Honor, there is no other possibility.
Mr. Woods felt like the luckiest man on the planet. Well, he was the luckiest man on the planet. He always wanted to be a father, and his girlfriend made that dream come true. His dreams came crashing down when Ms. James told him he wasn't the father.
Mr. Woods, you say your dream of becoming a father came true when the defendant gave birth to your 1-year-old daughter, Addison. But that dream became a nightmare when months after you became a daddy and signed the birth certificate, the defendant dropped a bomb and said you are not her father. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. James dove right into it. Oh, trust me, it was a shocker to everyone in the courtroom when she said Mr. Woods wasn't the father. They were all in disbelief that she had admitted it. She claimed she told Mr. Woods, but he refused to believe her.
I'm here today to tell them that he is not the father, and I did tell him this before.
So it even hurts you because you know the bond they have established. You know how much Mr. Woods loves Addison.
Yes, Your Honor.
And you can see she loves him.
Yes, Your Honor.
But you're saying you have to come here to tell the truth.
Yes, Your Honor.
Well, some eggs are definitely about to break. Their relationship started with Mr. Woods being the shoulder to cry on for Ms. James. She cheated on her boyfriend with Mr. Woods. A couple of months after that, she called Mr. James to tell him she was carrying his baby.
So we didn't talk about it, and then 2 months later I was at work, and that's when she called me and said that she was pregnant, and I was the father.
Wow. So Ms. James,
Yes, Your Honor.
did you use protection?
No.
So when you found out you were pregnant, you immediately called Mr. Woods.
Yes, but I told him that he was not the father, that it could be somebody else.
When she initially told her boyfriend that she was pregnant, he denied the baby and told her he wanted nothing to do with the child. Having no other option, she told Mr. Woods that he was the father of the child at the time.
He did not want anything to do when I told him that I was pregnant, and it possibly could be his daughter.
The other guy,
Yes, Your Honor.
he didn't want anything to do with the baby.
No, yes, Your Honor.
So Mr. Woods, you said you were excited. Once
Yes, Your
you
Honor.
found out you were having a baby, you started going to the doctor's appointments, what else did you do?
Mr. Woods was one sweet dad. He was there for everything. Through the birth and through taking care of the baby, he basically showed up every step of the way. He even signed the birth certificate. The question then remains, where did the doubt come from?
Because I did not want to leave her side or Aubrey's because she's in pain, so I stayed there the whole time. I called off
And
work
did you
just to
sign
stay
the
there.
birth certificate?
Yes, Your Honor, I did.
You did. So Ms. James, if you had these doubts, why did you allow Mr. Woods to sign the birth certificate?
Because he proposed to me, and he knew that it was right to propose to someone if he wanted to take responsibility of the child.
Ms. James kept it a secret from him until 2 months after the baby was born that the child could possibly not be his own. Now that's just wicked. If you ask me, she definitely broke his heart with that statement.
Not till 2 months after she was born.
Not until 2 months after Addison was born.
Yes, Your Honor.
What happened?
We was living together at the time. We was still engaged, and then we got to a big fight. And I walked outside, and she came out with me, and that's when she said that Addison may not be mine. That could be her ex.
It was a really sad day for Mr. Woods in the courtroom. When Ms. James's brother walked up to the stand, he couldn't deny how much Mr. Woods cared for the child. He even said he was the best father figure the child could ever need. That has to be the sweetest thing ever.
Addison, and he is a great father to her. And I just really wanted to make it a point to him and Mr. Woods here that the child support can be devastating, because I am in a position of that myself, and I would like to see my niece have a responsible, good father in her life, and have that father figure.
Well, the suspense is finally over, and the hassle of who the dad of their child is about to be revealed. It's been a bumpy and funny ride with Mr. Woods and Ms. James. All eyes are on the judge as she unleashes the truth. Get ready, paternity folks.
Mr. Woods, you are not the father. I'm sorry for him and for you and for Addison. Jerome, will you please go and see if you can get Mr. Woods to return to the courtroom and check on him, please?
I will.
This is one epic church scandal that I promise you will never forget. Mr. House was in that courtroom to defend his name as he was being accused of fathering the child of a woman who was 28 years younger than him. Trust me, it was one hell of a case.
Who may have fathered a child with a woman who's 28 years younger than you.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, Ms. Webster, you admit you were involved with 3 different men during the time you conceived your daughter, including Mr. House.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, the second possible father you've identified, Mr. Miles Jones, is 9 years older than you, and he's currently waiting outside of the courtroom.
It was really hard to believe that Mr. House was actually a pastor. Ms. Webster, who happened to be the mother in question, was a member of his church, and she had 3 possible men who could be the father to her child.
Moving to Buffalo, New York to take on a new assignment as a pastor. I'm a bishop, but I'm also a traveling pastor. But I'm also a man. I want to stress that right away, that I'm a man and I have manly needs. So it doesn't mean that I won't see a woman, but I'm also a pastor. I met her, we began to talk, began to enjoy each other. I liked her company. We shared some tragedies together. She went through a tragedy. She lost her mom. I went through tragedy. I lost my child.
Well, their funny little story started with a Bible study session. As Ms. Webster talked about how they met, she said she thought she was going to have a normal Bible session, but it ended in both her and Mr. House having unprotected sex.
We met through my aunt. We met at a church. It was supposed to have been like a Bible study thing, but instead of that, it was like more, it led on to sexual, unprotected sex.
They couldn't get their stories to align, and trust me, it wasn't surprising at all. Ms. Webster claimed that they met in church and things became sexual during one of their sessions. Mr. House, on the other hand, said they met at a food stand, and she was the one who wanted a sexual relationship with him.
She's saying you all were at church, but regardless, you decided to be in a sexual relationship. Was it more than a sexual relationship?
No,
or
it was just a hookup.
It was
just a hookup.
It was a booty call.
And you agreed with that it was just...
Not only with me, with 3 other people
it
as
was
well.
just a sexual
It was just
relationship.
a sexual relationship.
Casual, no commitment.
No commitment.
Ms. Webster drops a truth bomb in the courtroom that leaves everyone speechless. While she was fooling around with our sleek pastor in her Bible sessions, she had a boyfriend. In her defense, she claimed her relationship was on and off, which eventually resulted in her having a sexual relationship with Mr. House.
Yes, he was a boyfriend. We knew each other for 5 years, but it was an on and off relationship.
I knew nothing about that, Your Honor, at all whatsoever.
And so you knew Mr. Miles Jones before you ever met Mr. House?
Yes.
Okay. And so admittedly, you were having sex with both of these gentlemen?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Jerome, I think it's time that we meet Mr. Miles Jones.
Mr. Jones, who happens to be the boyfriend in the picture, walks into the courtroom. Her relationship with Mr. Jones didn't particularly start as a romantic one. It began as a sexual one before they both started to have feelings for each other.
At first, it started off as casual sex for about 2 to 3 weeks, and then I started catching feelings. She told me that she started catching feelings also, so we made a serious relationship.
So you decided to make it serious?
Yes.
But at some point, she started sleeping with Mr. House. Did you know that? You knew?
No, I had no idea.
Now, Ms. Webster finds out she's pregnant. Of course, she doesn't tell her boyfriend because he has no idea she was intimate with her pastor. But guess what? After telling Mr. House he is nowhere to be found, it's as if, as soon as he finds out she's pregnant, he disappears from the surface of the earth.
When I found out I was pregnant, I was trying to contact Mr. House. His phone was disconnected. First, I never knew he left town. And then I didn't even get in contact to tell him until after I had my baby, which he denied her to the Phyllis. He denied her. He wanted a DNA test. He didn't want nothing to do with my baby.
That's not true.
And for his money to be on full when I asked him for diapers and everything, where was that?
Mr. House had some doubts about the baby's paternity because she was in intimate relationships with a couple of other men who were not him. But hold up, that was not the craziest part of her story. She waited 6 months before telling him that she was pregnant and that he might be the father of her child.
And then she said to me, I'm pregnant. I said, really? I said, how long? She was like, I'm about 5 to 6 months. I said, so trying to tell me that it's mine? She said
5 to 6 months before you told him?
Well, I was
So you
4
can
to 5
imagine, I didn't know it all.
So when you told him, I'm pregnant, did you then tell him, and you're the father?
No, I told him it's a possibility that he can be my baby's father.
That was one hell of a case, if you ask me. The hassle of who the dad of their child is about to be revealed. It's been a bumpy and funny ride with Mr. White and Ms. Webster. All eyes are on the judge as she unleashes the truth. Get ready, paternity folks.
Mr. House, it has been determined by this court that you are not her father. Do you know who your child's father is?
My ex-boyfriend.
Your Honor, I just feel that a great injustice is done. I not know who you're sleeping with and accuse